The Princess and the Pea. Once upon a time, in a grand golden castle, there lived a kind-hearted prince. He wanted to marry a real princess, not just someone who dressed like one, but a true princess at heart. So he traveled far and wide, meeting many princesses. Some were too proud, some too loud, and some just didn't feel quite right. The prince returned home feeling disappointed. Will I ever find a real princess? He sighed. Then one stormy night, boom, crash! There was a knock at the palace gate. When the queen opened the door, she saw a soaked young girl standing there, with muddy shoes and a torn cloak. She claimed, "I am a real princess and I've lost my way in the storm." The queen was suspicious. A real princess? She thought. We shall see. So the queen came up with a clever test. She placed a single green pea at the bottom of a grand bed. Then she stacked 20 soft mattresses and 20 fluffy feather beds on top. The girl was invited to sleep there. The next morning, the queen asked, "How did you sleep, dear?" The girl yawned and said, "Oh, not well at all. I felt something hard under all the mattresses. It was so uncomfortable." The queen smiled. Only a real princess could be that sensitive. The prince was overjoyed. He knew he had finally found his true princess. The prince and the princess were soon married with a grand celebration. And the tiny green pea? It was placed in a royal treasure box to remember the day love and truth were proven by the smallest little thing. And they lived happily ever after. The Secret of the 12 Dancing Princesses. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a wise and kind king who had 12 beautiful daughters. They all lived together in a grand castle, and each princess had her own cozy bed in a big room. Every night, the king would kiss them good night and lock their door so they could sleep peacefully. But something strange was happening. Every morning, when the princesses woke up, their shoes were worn out, as if they had danced all night long. The king was puzzled. Where do my daughters go at night? He wondered. He asked his guards to watch them, but no one could figure it out. So the king made a royal announcement. Whoever can discover the secret of my daughter's worn-out shoes will marry one of them and become a prince. Many princes came and tried to solve the mystery, but they all failed. Then one day, a kind and clever soldier came to the castle. An old woman he met on the road gave him a magical invisibility cloak and some advice. Don't drink anything the princesses offer you, and wear this cloak to follow them. That night, the soldier pretended to sleep as the princesses offered him a drink. He secretly poured it into a flower pot instead. Soon, the princesses thought he was fast asleep. "Now we can go," whispered the eldest princess. The soldier put on the invisible cloak and followed them. He watched in amazement as the 12 sisters lifted a secret panel in the floor, went down a hidden staircase, and entered a sparkling underground world filled with silver trees and golden leaves. At the end of the path, there were 12 princes waiting in 12 magical boats. The princesses stepped in, and off they went to a crystal palace, where they danced the night away. The soldier picked a golden branch as proof and followed them back before morning. For 3 nights, he watched and collected more proof: a silver leaf, a goblet, and a ribbon. On the 4th morning, he went to the king. I have discovered the secret, he declared. He told the king everything, showed the proof, and the princesses gasped. They couldn't hide the truth anymore and told their father the whole story. The king kept his promise. The soldier married the eldest princess, and they lived happily ever after. As for the other princesses, they promised never to sneak off again, unless it was to a royal dance with permission. The Frog Prince. Once upon a time, in a beautiful kingdom filled with flowers and sunshine, there lived a kind and curious princess. She loved to play in the palace garden and often tossed her favorite golden ball high into the air. One day, while playing near a deep forest pond, the golden ball slipped from her hands and plop, it fell into the water. The princess began to cry. Just then, a little green frog popped his head out of the pond. "Why are you crying, princess?" the frog asked politely. "My golden ball fell in, and I can't reach it," she sniffled. "I will get your ball," said the frog, "but you must promise to be my friend. Let me eat from your golden plate and sleep on your soft pillow." The princess didn't think a frog could really follow her home, so she quickly said, "Yes, yes, I promise." The frog dove into the water and brought back the golden ball. The princess squealed with joy and ran back to the palace, forgetting all about her promise. The next day, during dinner, the frog came hopping into the dining hall. Plop, plop. The princess was surprised and a little grossed out. The king asked, "Did you make a promise to this frog, my dear?" The princess nodded slowly. "Then you must keep your word," the king said gently. So the frog sat beside her, ate from her plate, and followed her to her room. That night, as the frog lay on her pillow, something magical happened. With a flash of light and a poof, the frog turned into a handsome young prince. "I was cursed by a wicked witch," he explained. "Only a promise kept by a kind-hearted person could break the spell." The princess smiled. From that day on, they became the best of friends. And one day, much later, they were married in a joyful celebration. And they lived happily ever after. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a land of tall mountains and sparkling rivers, there lived a kind and beautiful princess named Snow White. She had skin as white as snow, lips as red as cherries, and hair as black as a raven's feathers. Everyone in the kingdom loved her, but there was one person who did not. The evil queen, Snow White's stepmother, was jealous of her beauty. Every day she would ask her magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror would reply, "You, my queen, are fair and bright, but Snow White is the fairest in sight." The queen grew angry and plotted to get rid of Snow White. But Snow White, wise and brave, escaped into the deep forest. There, she discovered a cozy little cottage with tiny chairs, tiny beds, and tiny dishes. It belonged to 7 dwarfs who worked in the diamond mines. Their names were Happy, Grumpy, Sleepy, Sneezy, Bashful, Dopey, and Dark. "Please let me stay," Snow White said. "I'll cook and clean while you're at work." The dwarfs were delighted and agreed. Snow White made the cottage warm and cheerful, and they all became the best of friends. But the evil queen discovered Snow White was still alive. Disguising herself as an old peddler woman, she visited the cottage and tricked Snow White into biting a poisoned apple. As soon as she took a bite, Snow White fell into a deep, magical sleep. The dwarfs were heartbroken. They placed her gently in a glass coffin in the forest, surrounded by flowers. One day, a kind prince who had heard tales of the beautiful princess came to see her. He bent down and gently kissed Snow White, and like magic, she woke up. The spell was broken by true love's kiss. The forest rang with cheers and happy tears. The prince and Snow White returned to the castle and invited the dwarfs to live with them. And from that day on, they all lived happily ever after. Rapunzel, the brave girl with the magical hair. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there lived a kind couple who longed for a child. One day, their wish came true, and a baby girl was born. She had shiny golden hair that sparkled in the sunlight. They named her Rapunzel. But a mean witch named Mother Gothel, who wanted the baby's magical hair for herself, took little Rapunzel away and hid her in a tall tower deep in the forest. The tower had no stairs and no doors, just one window at the very top. As Rapunzel grew, her golden hair grew too, so long and strong that it could be used like a rope. Mother Gothel would call out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And Rapunzel would gently lower her braid so the witch could climb up. Even though Rapunzel was locked in a tower, she didn't feel sorry for herself. She filled her days with painting, singing, reading, and dreaming. Her favorite dream: to one day explore the world beyond the tower. She would gaze out the window and watch floating lights that appeared every year on her birthday. She didn't know what they were, but she felt deep inside that they were meant for her. One day, a curious and kind traveler named Finn stumbled upon the tower. He called up, "Hello? Is someone there?" Rapunzel was scared at first, but something about Finn seemed different from the witch. So she bravely let down her hair. When Finn climbed up and saw Rapunzel's art, books, and courage, he was amazed. "You've done all this by yourself?" he asked. "Yes," Rapunzel smiled. "One day I'll do even more, out there." Rapunzel asked Finn if he knew about the floating lights. "Those lights are lanterns the kingdom releases for the lost princess every year on her birthday," he said. Rapunzel's heart skipped a beat. Could she be? She decided to leave the tower for the very first time in her life. She was scared, but she whispered to herself, "I am brave. I can do this." With Finn's help, Rapunzel saw the world: trees, rivers, animals, people laughing. She learned, helped others, and even saved Finn from danger using her cleverness and magical hair. When they reached the kingdom, everyone was amazed by her golden hair. The king and queen looked at her closely, and tears filled their eyes. "Our daughter," they whispered, "our Rapunzel." Yes, she was the lost princess all along. Rapunzel forgave Mother Gothel, knowing that holding on to anger would only keep her heart locked. She chose kindness and courage, just like she always had. From that day on, Rapunzel ruled with love and wisdom. She built libraries and art schools and made sure no one ever felt trapped or alone again. And every year, on her birthday, the lanterns still floated high into the sky, reminding everyone that no matter where you are or how hard things get, you can always shine your light. Cinderella's Magic Dream. Once upon a time, in a little village, there lived a kind girl named Cinderella. She was always happy, even though she had to do all the chores, sweeping, cooking, and cleaning, while her two mean stepsisters just bossed her around. But Cinderella never complained. She believed in kindness and dreams. One day, an invitation arrived for a grand royal ball at the palace. The prince was looking for a friend to dance with. "Oh, how I wish I could go," Cinderella sighed. But her stepsisters just laughed and took her pretty dress so she couldn't go. Just when Cinderella felt sad, poof, a sparkling light filled the room. It was her fairy godmother. "Don't worry, dear," said the fairy godmother. "With a little magic, anything is possible." She waved her wand. Zap! Cinderella's old dress turned into a shiny blue gown. Zap! Her worn-out shoes became glass slippers. And zap! A pumpkin became a golden carriage. "But remember," said the fairy godmother, "this magic will disappear when the clock strikes midnight." Cinderella rode to the ball, feeling like a princess. When she arrived, everyone gasped. She looked beautiful. The prince saw her and smiled. "May I have this dance?" he asked. Cinderella twirled and laughed, having the most magical night of her life. Dong! The clock struck midnight. "Oh no!" Cinderella cried, dashing out of the palace. She ran so fast, one of her glass slippers fell off. The next day, the prince searched everywhere for the girl who had lost the slipper. Finally, he arrived at Cinderella's house. The stepsisters tried to squeeze into the shoe. Too small. Then Cinderella tried it on. Perfect fit. The prince cheered. He knew she was the one. Cinderella's kindness and courage had led her to her dream. And from that day on, she lived happily ever after, knowing that dreams do come true when you believe in yourself. The Little Mermaid. Once upon a time, deep down in the sparkly blue sea, there lived a curious little mermaid named Ariel. She had a long, shimmering tail that glittered like the sun on the ocean waves, and a voice so beautiful it could make dolphins dance. Ariel loved her underwater kingdom, but she was fascinated by the world above the waves. She collected treasures from shipwrecks, forks, which she called thingamabobs, mirrors, and even boots. Her best friends were Flounder, a silly but brave little fish, and Sebastian, a crab who was always trying to keep her out of trouble. One night, Ariel swam up to the surface and saw a ship sailing across the moonlit sea. On board was a handsome prince named Eric. Ariel watched him with wide eyes, enchanted by his smile and laughter. Suddenly, a storm crashed over the sea. The ship was tossed and turned, and Prince Eric was thrown into the water. Without a moment's hesitation, Ariel swam to him and pulled him to safety, laying him on the shore. She sang to him as he lay sleeping, then quickly disappeared before he could see her. But Prince Eric never forgot the beautiful voice that saved him. Ariel couldn't stop thinking about Eric. She dreamed of walking on land, dancing, and living in the world above. So she went to visit Ursula, the sea witch, who was not very nice at all. Ursula offered Ariel a deal. She would give her legs for 3 days. But if Ariel didn't get a kiss of true love from the prince in that time, she would turn back into a mermaid and belong to Ursula forever. To make the deal even trickier, Ursula took away Ariel's voice. Ariel nodded bravely, and poof, she had legs. On land, Ariel met Prince Eric again. He liked her right away, though he couldn't tell she was the girl who saved him because she couldn't talk or sing. They spent time together, laughing and exploring. Ariel tried to show Eric who she was through kindness and smiles. But oh, no. Ursula disguised herself as a beautiful woman and used Ariel's voice to trick Eric. She hypnotized him into thinking she was the one who saved him. With the help of Flounder, Sebastian, and some friendly sea creatures, Ariel broke Ursula's spell just in time. Her voice returned, and Prince Eric finally realized Ariel was the girl from the beach. He kissed her just before the sun set on the third day, breaking Ursula's spell forever. The Sea King, Ariel's father, saw how much she loved Eric. He waved his magic trident and turned Ariel into a human, for good. Ariel and Prince Eric were married on a beautiful ship, surrounded by both sea and land friends. And from that day on, Ariel lived happily ever after, exploring the world she always dreamed of, with love in her heart and the sea still sparkling in her soul. Aladdin and the Magic Lamp. Once upon a time, in the magical land of Agrabah, there lived a poor but kind-hearted boy named Aladdin. He lived with his mother and often dreamed of living in a grand palace. Though they had little money, Aladdin had a heart full of hope. One day, a mysterious man who claimed to be Aladdin's uncle took him to a hidden cave in the desert. "Only you can enter, Aladdin," he said. Inside the cave were mountains of glittering jewels and treasures. But the man wanted just one thing: a magical lamp. As Aladdin picked up the lamp, the cave shook and trapped him inside. Angry and scared, he rubbed the lamp, and suddenly a mighty blue genie popped out. "I am the genie of the lamp. You get 3 wishes," he boomed with a smile. Aladdin's first wish was to get out of the cave. Poof! They were back home. His second wish: to become a prince so he could marry the beautiful Princess Jasmine, whom he had met and fallen in love with at the market. The genie turned him into Prince Ali, with golden robes, a grand elephant, and a parade. Princess Jasmine was impressed by his kindness, not just his riches. But the evil man, who was really a wicked sorcerer named Jafar, stole the lamp and used it to become the most powerful sorcerer in the world. He banished Aladdin far away and forced Jasmine to be his queen. But Aladdin was brave. With the help of his monkey Abu, the flying carpet, and his clever thinking, he returned, tricked Jafar into wishing to become the most powerful being, a genie himself. Jafar got trapped in a lamp forever. Aladdin used his final wish to set the genie free. The genie was so happy he cried magical tears of joy. The Sultan saw Aladdin's courage and allowed him to marry Princess Jasmine. They lived happily ever after, flying across the stars on their magical carpet. Beauty and the Beast. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village, there lived a kind and clever girl named Bella. She loved reading books and helping others. While her 2 sisters only cared about dresses and jewels, Bella found joy in nature and stories. One day, her father went on a journey and got lost in a dark forest. He came upon a grand castle covered in vines. It looked empty, but inside, a delicious dinner was waiting, almost like magic. Tired and hungry, he ate and rested. Before leaving, he saw a beautiful rose in the garden and picked it for Bella. Suddenly, roar! A terrible beast appeared. He was big and furry, with sharp claws and glowing eyes. "That rose was mine," growled the beast. "You must stay here forever as punishment." The father begged, "Please let me go home to my daughter." The beast agreed, if Bella would come in his place. The father returned and told Bella everything. Brave Bella said, "Don't worry, Papa. I will go." She rode to the castle and met the beast. To her surprise, he was not mean. He was gentle and kind, just a little grumpy. He gave her a beautiful room, tasty food, and a library full of books. Every day, the beast asked, "Beauty, will you be my friend?" And every day, Bella smiled and said, "Yes." They had dinners, laughed, and read stories together. Slowly, Bella saw that the beast wasn't scary at all. He was lonely and kind. One day, Bella felt her father was sick. She asked the beast, "Can I visit him?" The beast said, "Yes, but please come back." Beauty promised and went home. Her father got better, but Bella stayed longer than she meant to. One night, she had a dream. The beast was lying in the garden, sad and weak. "Oh no," she cried. "I must go back." She rushed to the castle and found the beast in the garden. "Don't leave me," he whispered. Tears fell from her eyes. "I'm sorry, beast. I love you." Suddenly, poof! A cloud of sparkles flew in the air. The beast was gone, and in his place stood a handsome prince. "Beauty," he said, smiling, "your love has broken the curse." Long ago, a spell had turned him into a beast until someone saw his true heart. Beauty and the prince danced in the garden, surrounded by blooming roses, and they lived happily ever after, proving that true Bella comes from the inside. Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time, in a kingdom filled with flowers, music, and laughter, there lived a kind king and queen who wished for a child. One sunny morning, their wish came true. A baby girl was born, and they named her Princess Aurora. She had rosy cheeks, golden hair, and a smile that lit up the room. To celebrate, the king and queen threw the grandest party in the land. Everyone was invited, even the fairies who lived deep in the enchanted forest. 3 good fairies came fluttering in, their wings sparkling like stars. Their names were Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather. Each brought a magical gift for the baby princess. Flora waved her wand and said, "I give Princess Aurora the gift of beauty." Fauna twirled and added, "I give her the gift of a sweet voice that will charm birds and butterflies alike." Just as Merryweather raised her wand to give her gift, boom! A swirl of dark smoke filled the hall. Everyone gasped. It was the wicked fairy Maleficent, who was upset she hadn't been invited. She pointed her crooked finger and said in a cold voice, "When the princess turns 16, she will prick her finger on a spinning wheel and fall into a deep sleep forever." With a flash, she disappeared, leaving everyone frightened. But Merryweather was brave. She couldn't undo the curse, but she could soften it. "The princess will fall asleep, yes," she said, "but not forever. She will wake up with true love's kiss." To protect Aurora, the fairies took her far away, hiding her in a cottage in the forest. They raised her as their own and called her Briar Rose. Aurora grew up kind, clever, and loved by all animals in the forest. One day, while picking berries, she met a handsome young man. They talked, laughed, and sang together. Neither knew they were actually Prince Philip and Princess Aurora, destined to meet. But on her 16th birthday, Aurora returned to the castle. That night, a magical light lured her to a secret room. There stood a spinning wheel glowing with a strange light. Before anyone could stop her, prick! Aurora touched the spindle and fell into a deep, magical sleep. The whole kingdom, heartbroken, also fell asleep, as if time had frozen. Years passed, until Prince Philip, brave and determined, learned of the sleeping princess. He fought through thorns and vines, and even faced Maleficent, who turned into a fearsome dragon. With courage and a shining sword, Philip defeated her and reached the castle. He found Aurora asleep, just as beautiful as the day she fell. He gently kissed her forehead. And just like that, Aurora opened her eyes. The curse was broken. The kingdom woke up, and joy returned to the land. Prince Philip and Princess Aurora danced in the golden sunlight. They later married and lived happily ever after, ruling the kingdom with love, kindness, and peace. The Snow Queen. Once upon a time, in a little village surrounded by snowy mountains, there lived two best friends, Gia and Ria. They played together every day, tending to bright red roses in Ria's tiny garden, even when the winter winds howled outside. One chilly evening, a mysterious snowstorm blew through the village. With the storm came the Snow Queen, a dazzling lady dressed in sparkling ice. She had eyes like frozen lakes, and a crown made of icicles. She was beautiful, but her heart was as cold as winter itself. As the snowflakes danced, a tiny shard of the Snow Queen's magic mirror, which made everything good look bad, flew into Gia's eye and heart. Suddenly, Gia changed. She no longer laughed or smiled. One night, when snow covered the ground like a fluffy blanket, the Snow Queen appeared in her sleigh and whisked Gia away to her glittering palace at the top of the world. Ria was heartbroken. She missed her best friend terribly. So, brave little Ria decided to go find Gia herself. She packed some bread, wore her warmest boots, and set out on a grand adventure. Along the way, Ria met many wonderful friends. A kind old woman who gave her magical flowers. A wise crow who led her to a royal castle. A princess and prince who offered her warm clothes and a golden carriage. And even a little robber girl who, though wild and fierce, helped Ria continue her journey north. Finally, after many days and nights, Ria reached the Snow Queen's palace. It was a palace of pure ice, shining like diamonds under the northern lights. Inside, Gia sat still and silent, trying to solve a puzzle made of sharp, cold pieces of ice. Her heart was frozen. She didn't even recognize Ria. Tears filled Ria's eyes. She hugged Gia tightly and cried. Her warm tears touched Gia's heart, melting the icy shard inside her. Gia blinked, and suddenly she remembered everything. The roses, the games, their friendship. Holding hands, Gia and Ria laughed and cried with happiness. Together, they left the Snow Queen's palace. As they journeyed home, they noticed the world around them beginning to thaw. Flowers bloomed, rivers sang, and the sun shone warmly once again. When they finally returned to their village, everything felt just as magical, but even better, because they had each other. And from that day on, they knew true love, courage, and friendship can melt even the coldest winter.